All right. Hello and welcome in, everyone. If you're here for the next session of the Emails That Convert series, how to automate email campaigns that print money, you're in the right place. So thank you for joining us today. We have Carlos and Michael here, who I'll introduce more in a second. As I mentioned, this is actually the second session in a three-part series of webinars called Emails That Convert. The goal of this series is to help you accelerate growth through your email channel, highlighting some of the top email marketing tactics that successful email marketing programs are using today. And to bring you the best content and advice, we partnered with GetResponse. The team brings a lot of data-backed insights based on hundreds of thousands of customers. We shared a lot of great insights in our last session last week, which you can go and watch a recording of. We can share the link in the chat in a second. In today's session, we'll be first talking about why automation and email marketing works so well. It is really a no-brainer for you to be utilizing. Next, we'll discuss the effectiveness of several different types of automated emails. We go from autoresponders to welcome series to nurture or drip email sequences and more. And then we'll discuss some best practices for email copywriting to make your automated emails even more effective. Then finally today, we'll wrap up by answering your questions. We have some pre-submitted, but also please feel free to submit them for us to answer at the end. But without further ado, I think everyone's joined in, so we'll move on to introductions. Our first special guest today is Michael Barber. Michael, would you mind taking a moment to introduce yourself and tell us your current role?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael. I run our marketing team at startech.com. For over 40 years, we've made the hard to find easy for IT professionals around the world. And I've luckily been in the email world in this industry for the last 20 or so years. It was the backbone of my career, and I've been able to do work with hundreds of brands on their email channel. Look forward to having a conversation with Carlos, Scott, and you all today on automated email campaigns.
Thanks so much for joining us. Returning from the first session, we also have Carlos Gill. Carlos, I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself a little more, say hi to the audience.
Yeah, for sure. So once again, welcome back. For those of you that tuned in to the first session, if you're joining us for the first time, make sure that you go back and you watch that first session. But thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm really excited. I've worked with Michael for years, known him. He is one of the leading experts in email marketing. So I promise you, you are in for a treat. Michael, in fact, has an email marketing course that lives within the GetResponse framework. So in addition to email, GetResponse packs a whole big punch of tools to be able to help marketers and businesses around the world stay relevant and convert more of those prospects and customers into cash. Once again, thank you so much to Marketer Hire for partnering with GetResponse on this entire series, and let's keep moving it forward, Scott.
Awesome. Then finally, I'm Scott Strand. I work with Marketer Hire as a growth consultant, and I have 10 years of B2B SaaS demand gen experience, mostly spanning from different audiences, marketing and sales, finance and HR, to IT and cybersecurity. I basically lend my services to Marketer Hire to run webinars that convert into pipeline. Similarly, for people looking for email marketing help, Marketer Hire is really the place where they can provide freelancers, experts that can build that successful email marketing program for you. We connect you with the top 1% of talent. So if you're interested, you can book a call with us today to find your perfect freelancer, no commitments. And we basically go out and look on your behalf for someone who could be the perfect fit with a flexible schedule and budget. So more on that later. But let's get into the content. Let's dive right in. Carlos, I'm going to hand it off to you to explain this first section, basically setting up why is email marketing automation so important? Why does it work so well? And why is it something people can't sleep on?
For sure. So first of all, before I get started and before I bring Michael back onto the stage here, I, like many marketers out there, have used email marketing for years, right? I've grew up with email. I jokingly shared in the last session that email is really the OG of digital marketing, because when you think about the early days of social media, you think about America Online, the first thing that you would hear when you would log on is you've got mail. So we know that email is important, but in recent times, email has become very much an afterthought by marketers because social media is instant. Social media has, the dopamine rush that email doesn't necessarily give you because most marketers aren't doing email right. However, the pendulum is starting to swing in the other direction, especially as these social networks start to tighten up the clamps when it comes to their algorithm, their reach. Email is becoming increasingly more important. And we've even seen here in recent months with the possible TikTok ban here in the US, the importance of owning your data, which is something that I'm very passionate about, especially in my role working with GetResponse as their brand evangelist. It's bringing education to marketers and to business owners like this to be able to restate the importance of email, but more importantly, show those businesses and those marketers within them how to use email. And when I think about automation is really something that I feel, even amongst most marketers, is overlooked because it requires a strategy. No different than anything else that we do in marketing. So, Scott, if we want to turn to this next slide here, what we're going to teach you and uncover here over the next hour or so is how you can develop your automation strategy, but more importantly, how email can work for you and be an always on funnel. One of the aspects that has me most excited now that I've been working with GetResponse for a year in this role is actually around automation, because like most marketers, I've used email for years to send more so campaigns, send out newsletters. I myself overlooked automation for years, even running an e-commerce business as far as a couple of years ago, even running a brick and mortar business as far back as a couple of years. So, Michael, I want to bring you to the fold here. At a very high level, how would you define what automation is for someone that's not necessarily familiar with this term in the context of email marketing?
Yeah, it's an always-on cadence of email content that once you set up, you're able to forget it. It runs essentially in the background, and it's based on maybe either data you're getting from a subscriber or something that they're doing around your business, whether it be on your website, your app, or another third-party place you may be tracking data.
So as we just kind of break this down, right? You see the headline there on the screen in front of you. Automation helps you scale engagement and revenue without burning out. First bullet point, you can't just send one email and hope for the best. Like, let's kind of break this down, Michael. For most businesses out there that are relying on email marketing just to kind of, what I call like send and pray, right? You send an email campaign, you hope for the best. Like, how can you go much deeper with automation so you're not relying on just the KPIs that come out of those one-off sends?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I think of email in three specific categories or three different types of email. You have your promotional campaigns, right? The one that you just mentioned is sort of like a spray and pray. Those are your campaigns that you push out. Maybe it's a monthly newsletter or a weekly newsletter, or it's a new product launch or something you're announcing about of your business. It's typically got a really core focus, single message. It's getting straight to the point. Those are your promotional campaigns. Then you've got your automated campaigns. And I usually try and describe automated campaigns into two buckets. One are sort of those automated operational campaigns. So these are like, hey, you're a new subscriber. Here's a set of emails we're going to send to you. Or you also might have your transactional campaigns. So these are anything that's related to your storefront, like you bought a product or you returned a product. Those are other automated campaigns, a part of that bucket. So those are three different, I think, distinct buckets you can think about for some of those campaigns. And we're going to touch on those last two, those operational or automated, and then our transactional campaigns that we can utilize as well that are just as important and can help your business generate additional revenue.
Now, before we get into it, Michael, is automation aimed more so to help a enterprise level business? Does it benefit anyone, small to medium? If you're a solopreneur, even a creator, can anyone benefit by setting up automation workflows?
Yeah, for sure. Whether it's GetResponse or other ESPs or email service providers that are out there, it doesn't take certainly a degree in email or anything marketing related to set these up. Most of the platforms like GetResponse actually give you journey builders or automated email builders where it's plug and play. You pick the thing you're trying to do, a welcome series, a cart abandonment series, a sales enablement series, and it will give you all of these different emails that you can then plug in with your content, set them up, and get them rolling.
So before we move on to the next slide, then just want to confirm with you, Michael, for those that are still relatively new in the email marketing space and might be hearing the term automation for the first time, automation essentially helps you keep your email marketing strategy going 24/7, 365 around the clock. Is that correct?
That is correct. It doesn't matter if you're a mom and pop, small business, all the way through the enterprise. These can be as easy and as complicated as we want to make them.
Cool. So let's make it easier for those that are watching. Let's go on to that next slide, Scott. So this right here is the 4-part workflow, and we're going to go through this. This is the easiest way to understand an automation workflow, because I often find myself telling marketers, look, you cannot just use email. I guess you can. You can just use email to send out campaigns and hope for the best and try to convert. But essentially, if you're trying to convert your audience from, let's say, platforms like Instagram or LinkedIn over into your email newsletter, one of the worst things that you could do is immediately start bombarding them with ads or with promotional content. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with that for sure.
So maybe you want to take a stab, Mike, at the starting with lead magnet. In terms of setting up a workflow, what would your recommendations be?
Yeah, there's a couple thoughts here. I would look at all of the places where you've got inbound traffic coming from on your website, right? So if you have any sort of analytics platform on your website, you can see where that inbound traffic is coming from, and take a look at what's driving the most opportunities for net new and returning visitors to that site, and then figure out different offers or deals that could help drive, if you will, a net new subscriber. So if you're selling something on a store, this could be a coupon, like 10% off, or it could be a certain dollar figure off, or maybe it's free shipping or the like, for providing your email address. For on maybe less on the consumer side, more on the business side, this could be an opportunity to join a specific customer panel. It could be a white paper download, a webinar invite. That lead magnet could be a variety of things depending upon the context of your business, but you want to design them for where your traffic is coming into the site, so you can be really specific about, hey, individual that's coming from this source, feel free to hop in and receive this deal from us to become a subscriber. So these lead magnets can be designed all around, number one, the sources of where your traffic is coming from, and then think about opportunities for you to give away something of value so that somebody feels like they're getting something out of subscribing to your campaigns.
So for those that watched in the first session, Michael, just so you know, was all around converting your social media audience over into email subscribers. And I provided a lot of different tips and tricks. I scratched the surface with automation, scratched the surface with using lead magnets, but knowing that we were going to do this session today, I wanted to really go deep, right? So like Michael said, the first thing that you need to set up, whether it's GetResponse or any other ESP that you're using, is set this mechanism up where you have something of value to give to your audience. My recommendation today would be go to ChatGPT. Tell ChatGPT what it is that you do, who you're trying to engage, and have ChatGPT come up with ideas on what a lead magnet should be, right? So if you are a B2B brand, like for example, GetResponse, we're an ESP, right? That lead magnet could be as simple as like 10 email tips to like put your email marketing on steroids in 2025, just for example, right? You turn that lead magnet into a PDF, you upload that into GetResponse. Now you have a mechanism. So when someone visits your website, for example, you can go ahead and offer them that lead magnet in exchange for their email. Or if you're more of a consumer brand, and I believe you were alluding to this, Michael, you have a hook to reel people in. On the social media side, you're going to want to have a hook to drive people into the VIP section of your brand, which is your email newsletter. I use my course within GetResponse as a lead magnet because it's a free course. So by signing up for that course, you have to give me your email address. Now you go into my funnel, so to speak, within GetResponse, right? So that's the first part. Let's talk about the actual welcome email. I know you have some examples that you're going to share, Michael, so I don't want to spoil too much, but how important is that welcome email that people get once they opt in to your newsletter?
Yeah, if you're going to spend time on any email campaign or automation, you should spend the bulk of your brain power, or ChatGPT's brain power, if that's what you're using, to design it, on your welcome series. It is the first touch that a new subscriber is going to have. It is their first impression, if you will. They need to feel value from that, and they need to have a connection to your brand. There's a ton of data out there that suggests your welcome campaign is likely going to be the highest engaged with campaign. That could be based on an open rate or click-through rate or an action rate, those sorts of metrics. But because this is going to be the campaign where you likely will have the most eyeballs on, in those first few steps and those first few email cadences that you're sending out, you want to make sure you've got this dialed in. And we've got some good examples coming up. But if you're going to spend some time on getting a campaign right, it is going to be that welcome series. You typically see 3 to 4 times X on open rates and engagement rates broadly. We've seen data that suggests a 30% plus increase in potential clicks in that campaign comparatively to what you'll do after the welcome series. So just a really important step and a really important part of this workflow for sure.
Then let's talk about the nurturing. So, just asking you as the expert here, Michael, welcome email is typically one email followed up by a series of email, or is the welcome email an experience with multiple emails?
It can be either or. So we're going to show some examples where it's a one-step sequence that welcome campaign looks like. And we're going to show some that looks like 3 or 4 steps as a part of that welcome automation. What really drives the number of campaign steps or the number of emails you're going to send in that welcome is what data do you have on that subscriber, right? So, and this is going to come from your lead magnet. You ask them for email address. You may have asked them for, what type of business that they are or what problem that they're trying to solve. And then allows any of those questions or any of that insights, whether it's first party or third party that you're getting as a part of that subscriber, you can use to deliver really nuanced or personalized data inside of those welcome campaigns. So that may, create the opportunity, and you'll see an example we'll show in just a moment, where you could have a multi-step sequence that's a part of that welcome campaign.
And then what about nurturing?
Yeah, and then it really comes... Yeah, for sure. I mean, nurturing can be really comes down to the type of business that you've got that you're running. So if you're just doing a simple e-com store, that could be if someone comes to your website and searches for a specific product in your search box, because then you can actually know that they've come been to your site before they've converted. You can send them an email that, if you will, an interest abandonment email around what they search for. It could be a cart abandonment nurture, right? They put something in their cart and then you're nurturing them with some sort of offer for that thing. Conversely, if you're not running an e-com store, but you're running something that's more of a content experience or a SaaS platform or something like that, it could be based on what specific pages did they go to the site, and then, bringing in a sales cadence or bringing in a promotional cadence that highlights the features and benefits of that particular feature that they may have looked at for their business. So there's a variety of ways to think about that. The nurture campaigns are really going to be based on what you're selling. What is the thing that you're trying to get your subscriber to convert on? And then thinking about ways that you can pull in first-party data points inside of your email service providers, because whether it's GetResponse or others, they've got really good integrations to third parties, whether it's like Shopify on the store side or your content management system like WordPress, and they can gather that data for you. And then you can create those automations based on what actions and behaviors you're seeing from website visitors or subscribers.
So let me get this straight, right? To grow your email list, you have an offer or a lead magnet. Actually, the offer is at the very end. So not to confuse anyone, you have a lead magnet to attract people, get them to opt in. At that point, once they opt in, they're going to receive a welcome email, either one email or a series of emails. At that point, you're going to nurture them over a period of time, and then you deliver them an offer. So actually, 2-part question for you. What type of offer are you putting in front of that person? And how do you ensure that someone doesn't opt out? Because it seems like now we're talking about multiple emails in a sequence that you're sending to someone in a short period of time.
The first thing that I would say is don't be so scared about opt-outs or unsubscribes. People are going to self-select the brands that they have interest in. If you're worried about the unsubscribe, I think the things you should be more worried about, what is the content that's actually engaging people versus how people are self-selecting out. Also, just on unsubscribe rates, they're not a massive issue these days when it comes to how they impact deliverability, which is something I'm sure you'll talk about through this series. But I would be less concerned with those opt-outs unless you saw significant high opt-outs on the first couple of campaigns, and then you've got a content issue. Be more concerned with the copy and content you're generating in them. When you think about the offer, you can of course test this, right? This again is going to be based on the context of your business. If you're selling a tchotchke, those offers are going to be around, maybe it's a volume discount or it's an individual percentage or dollar off discount or something like that. If you're, on the selling something else of a high value, maybe it's a certain, smaller percentage off or some opportunity to get a discount for a multi-year contract or something along those lines, right? So you're going to have to think about that offer in the context of what you're selling. And then the great thing with any one of these automated campaigns is in that offer series is you can do some A/B testing, right? You can test multiple different offers and see which one is generating conversions for your business and driving revenue for your business, and then over-index into that and start sending just that offer that has generated more revenue or more conversions for your organization.
Well, we're going to keep it moving, Scott. If we could go to the next slide. So if anyone has any questions up to this point on the 4-part workflow, if you have any questions for Michael, make sure that you get those in the chat. Now let's talk about the 24/7 sales team, aka autoresponders, if we want to go to the next slide, Scott, because I always love this term, right? Like, I know as someone who has experience running a small business before, as well as at times throughout my career operating as a solopreneur, like, you have to work smart with the tools that you have. And I love this AI era that we're in, because AI can essentially help you do the work of an entire team as one person, or if you have a small team, it can help you, grow a lot faster. So when we think about autoresponders as digital sales reps in the context of email, always on, always selling, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so there's a variety of things you can do around autoresponders. It's really geared towards how do you get that conversation going with someone who has clearly raised their hand or expressed interest in your business as quickly as possible. This is a great example from the team over at Ramp, if you're not familiar, but it's an expense management platform, super high growth rate. I think they do just an incredible job with their email campaigns, both on the autoresponders, but just on the resources that they deliver in them. So if you get the chance, go opt into their email series and see what they're doing there. But these autoresponders essentially are, hey, if someone says, I've got an interest in your business, you can deliver a campaign and pair them with someone inside of your business really quickly, almost instantaneously, right? Without having to, have sales manually follow up. You're able to say, hey, if they express interest here, or they're looking for a product demo, or they've, gone through some sort of tool or lead magnet on your website or elsewhere, send them this set of series based on, specific data points that they've provided in either their journey on your website or data point that they provided in that lead magnet form, right? You create it once, you can schedule it, and it goes out and runs in the background and generating pipeline 24/7, 365. Again, it allows you to scale that sales opportunity a lot quicker than simply having to pass off a lead that's come in through some sort of contact us form on your site, and get them connected to someone inside of your business. In the case of Ramp, this is a biz dev individual, as quickly as possible.
So I can see where this would work really well for B2B, but tell me, Michael, how would this translate for a consumer brand?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I think it translates both ways. If you've got a brand that is positioned from a brand perspective, from their brand strategy, where they want to have a close relationship with a consumer, this is an email that can be automated, that comes from maybe it's an influencer or a creator like yourself that works inside a brand. GetResponse could have an autoresponder that's coming from Carlos Gill, right? But I don't think this is anything different than if Apple wanted to have an autoresponder that, came from Tim Cook, right? That maybe 45 days after the Mac, you got what looked like a personalized email from Tim Cook saying, I'd appreciate all your feedback that you can provide to our product team, right? So these autoresponders, I don't think it really matters the context of the business. Plain text works regardless if you're in a B2C or a B2B environment. You just got to figure out which one might work best for your organization. But we're going to show some examples of more consumer-oriented brands and what they're doing from an autoresponder perspective, or what we would classically term almost like a welcome series from a more consumer-oriented brand in just a second.
So before we move on, I often find myself using this example when I'm speaking to a live audience in terms of the importance of having a welcome series or a welcome email. The welcome email, from my perspective, sets the tone of what your audience can expect moving forward. Most of the newsletters I'm on, most of the email list I'm on, I have no idea how I ever even got on them. And I often find myself picking on Nordstrom's for no other reason than I love Nordstrom's. I'm a loyal shopper, but their emails to me feel very busy, right? I get hit up multiple times a day. It's always sales rhetoric. It's not really personalized to me. I would love if way back when I opted in to Nordstrom's or Starbucks or any one of these brands that I receive their emails from every day, I would love to have received an email from them welcoming me into their club or whatever they call their newsletter, and then tell me what I can expect and or give me an option to maybe get an email once a week with like a weekly digest instead of every single day or multiple times a day. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, a couple of things for related to that statement. I think number one, you're sort of painting the picture as to why that welcome series is so important, right? It sets the tone with a new subscriber. If you're not offering them, and welcoming them into whatever, maybe it's a loyalty program in the case of Nordstrom's, right? It's their Nordies Club, with Starbucks, it's the Starbucks card. If you're not welcoming them in and sort of setting the expectations for what they're going to receive, people are going to very easily, decide to unsubscribe later on, or, even worse, mark as spam. We see that data in and out over the past few years with brands that don't have a welcome series versus those that do. Even if they're not opening, subscribers are seeing that email campaign pop up in their inbox. So you're almost creating like a brand awareness that, okay, I'm now going to be getting email campaigns from that brand, even if they don't open it. I think in the case of some of the ones that you described, like, Nordstrom's or Starbucks, the one thing I would say is if subscribers are ignoring your campaigns, right, it's time to consider a re-engagement flow that maybe gets their interest back in. And we're going to talk about that specific automated campaign a few slides later as well. But I would encourage, anybody that's setting up any sort of campaigns, don't just ingest subscribers from, different sources that you're getting. Maybe you sponsor a conference or you have people drop their business cards in some sort of mixer, right? Make sure they get that welcome series, set the expectation of what they're going to get over the course of that welcome series, really set the stage, drive for some sort of action, whether that's a click or a reply to get those engagements going to really help, that new subscriber feel like they have a relationship. And then a couple other things, and we'll show you these in later sets, in later examples, is you're going to want to see, ask them to do certain things like, hey, drag our email over to the priority inbox in Gmail, or mark us as a VIP, because Apple Mail and the AI that Apple's building around with the Apple Intelligence is going to start to look at like, what are the behaviors people are doing with campaigns, and then decide if they're actually going to deliver them into certain places. So that welcome series really needs to get your subscriber to do something to create an action with that individual.
I love the example that you gave about business cards and going to events, because I often will make the same recommendation before you go to a big conference like a South by Southwest, for example. You're going to meet a lot of people there. So I often say, like, have your welcome email or like your autoresponder set up before the event. Have an entirely new list created. So as you're on the scene networking, you're meeting people, and you get these people to opt into your newsletter, or you're manually going in and adding people that you met, now there's an email that's automatically going out to them. So you don't have to worry about the follow-up, which is a critical component that I know a lot of folks overlook. Now, Michael, I know we're going to move forward and we have some more examples from Ramp, but I want to get to a question here from Annie, who says, do you have any insight on how many steps are optimal for a welcome campaign? We currently have 8. Is this too many?
So Annie, great question. It's hard for me to say no, because I don't really know a lot about your business, but here's what I do want you to think about. I would lay those 8 out in some sort of time sequence, and then figure out, do you have other campaigns that are going to them, right? Are those individuals that are net new subscribers, are they excluded from additional promotions, or are they getting excluded from potentially like sales reps actually engaging with them? Because here's what inevitably happens is, if there's not clear compliance around your organization around, hey, if we have a net new subscriber, they are only in the welcome series, they may be getting an additional email campaigns from you or salespeople or other parts of the organization that you're not aware of. So 8 might be too many, especially if it's one every single day or one every 2 hours, right, for a certain set of time. But 8 might be the right cadence if you have a long sales cycle or something that's a high value product that you're selling that's delivered over the course of like maybe 30 to 45 days, right? So I can't say yes or no to 8. I'd need some more context, but just think about it in how your customer would be thinking about that product. Are you educating them through some sort of some sort of process, or getting them eventually connected to sales, finding out different things that they might be interested in those 8 emails, so you can deliver better emails in the future. At sort of like gut answer, yes, probably 8 is too many, but I think it would be important to sort of take a step back and decide, well, 8 might be the right thing, because those are the 8 emails that they're getting over the course of 30 to 45 days, and that could be entirely okay.
Mike, I appreciate you answering that. We have another question here that came in, so I'm going to throw it to you before we move forward. Are there any differences to consider when using autoresponders as a nonprofit to generate donations versus more traditional consumer-based companies selling products or services?
Yeah, for sure. I think first of all, so sorry about nonprofits, because I think 2 things that happen with nonprofits is they typically don't have the greatest email service provider. And 2, a lot of times their donation platforms are not fully integrated into their ESPs. And so it's hard to create a connection, one-to-one connection on that data. But if you've got that, great, and it's all integrated into some platform you're using, I think that's incredible. I'd say a couple of thoughts on autoresponders and nonprofits. 1, unless you have very clear data that suggests this person is ready to donate, then I would do more storytelling around the impact of your nonprofit in that first autoresponder and the subsequent parts of maybe your welcome series, versus going straight to the sell. I'd also think about doing, with autoresponders, you can create a relationship with maybe your fundraising director or the head of your nonprofit. So it builds the personal brand of that individual, and along with it, the brand of that nonprofit too. Because you could create something like you see in front of you from Ramp that's very specific, that's coming from the president or the executive director or the head of fundraising for that organization, that's thanking that individual for joining and coming along the journey of XYZ nonprofit, and then sharing some testimonials and some stories of impact. And then think about different things that can be related to your nonprofit. Maybe it's events that you want people to attend, or if it's connections to different donors or different parts of things you're doing inside of the community. And then eventually go for the donation opportunity through a later autoresponder.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Michael. All right, let's move forward on to the next, because I know that you've got some examples baked in here. So let's stay on Ramp. Clearly, you love their email marketing sequences here. Kind of speak to what we're seeing.
Yeah, for sure. So the point of the next 2 slides that you'll see in it, and Scott, if you want to slide in the next example, just so they can see what this looks like. Ramp does a 3-step sequence, essentially to gauge how much interest you may have in their product. And just keep in mind, Ramp, and we'll just consider Ramp in sort of like its silo. One of the things that Ramp does so well is there's a massive banner on it, on their .com, on the front page of their homepage, that invites you to become a subscriber. And essentially what it's trying to do is pair up with what the features that your business might need from their platform, and immediately create volume and scale for their sales team. And so over the course of a number of days, I think this runs over about 2.5 weeks, Jenny, in this case, who is an actual, SDR, sales development representative for Ramp, is checking in to see if we have questions, right? And just touching base, and you can see, kind of how that journey goes. One, she reaches out and, notes how many that we've inquired about Ramp. She has a little case study here, and then you'll see the sort of call to action is like, do you have some time for a quick chat? If she doesn't get a conversion action from that, then you automate the campaign to touch base with that net new subscriber. And if they don't get a conversion from that, then they're automating a third touch base to try and, again, generate that sales opportunity for the organization. But a great way to think about an autoresponder, is one, just as much of the actions you would do with an autoresponder are based on things that people are doing, like clicking through and converting. There also should be based on things that people aren't doing. And in this case, the Ramp example is showing like, hey, this particular lead is not converting into what Ramp wants, which is a conversation with sales. So autoresponders can be used for nurturing things that are good, like additional conversions, additional opportunities, but also things that are inherently considered negative, like a lack of response to, previous campaigns. Another example here in front of you, this is from the team at Asana. If you're not familiar with Asana, that's a workplace productivity tool, sort of like, get all your work done inside that platform. Again, an autoresponder that's set up. And this particular autoresponder actually is when you have converted to a paying customer. So Bit of a different autoresponder, but again, create scale and connection inside of your company. You'll note here it's a 4-part series. On the left side of your screen, if I've got my lefts and rights correct today, you've got their first welcome series that comes out, or excuse me, their onboarding or product onboarding nurture series here. You've got the welcome. Here's some step-by-step products or case studies and information you can use, resources you can use. In the middle, they're doing some utility information, right? Here's how you use our tool in concert or in collaboration with email and Teams and Slack and whatnot. In the third email, they've got a bunch of resources like templates and other areas you can go gather information. And the fourth email as a part of that autoresponder is, hey, if you want to have a quick chat with me about the platform, here's where you can book on my Calendly. So again, those autoresponders can be used for generating conversions, from someone who's just a net new subscriber into someone who's a customer. But think about how autoresponders can also create scale for your organization when someone does become a customer. So you can automate them on all the things that they can take advantage of inside of your platform or your service or your product and go from there.
All right, so let's talk more about the welcome series. If we go to the next slide, Scott. All right, so not to rehash what's already been said, but you've got an example here from your previous place of employment.
Yes.
Grow Schools. Kind of talk to us about the strategy that you implemented there.
Yeah, for sure. So at Grow Schools, we help charter school leaders all around the country, with money and resources to help their schools thrive. One of the things that we did inside of our welcome series that we generated over 6,000 subscribers over the course of 3 years, which comparatively was only a couple hundred before. But we would have a specific 4-step email sequence that would do a couple of things. One, thank them for being a part of the community and give them a little social proof. Like, why are you here, essentially? And what can you expect from us? And so you'll see some example to the right-hand side here. We essentially welcome them into the community. And again, thanks for joining. And here, 18,000 plus school leaders, right? So give them a little social proof around why they want to be a part of this group of people. Then we message, here's some information on what you're going to receive from us, monthly newsletter, Tuesday tips, and some webinar invites. And then we invite them to actually reply to the campaign with questions like, why did you subscribe and what did you hope to learn from us? And we would use the answers to these questions. Number one, there's a very tactical deliverability reason here. And also from an engagement perspective, there's no better metric, no better thing you can get a new subscriber to do than reply. So you want to drive for that reply. But two, we would use the answers from this question to generate ideas for our content strategy and different content pieces that we do. So just another areas of how you can integrate some of the things you're doing across your marketing team and your business. So just a great example of a simple welcome series that you can generate. And feel free to take this example for what it's worth. We casually, if you will, got some creative example from an old friend of mine to actually create this copy here. But feel free to take it and utilize it on your own campaigns too.
Before, Michael, we move on to the next slide, we have a really good question here from Diane. She's asking, if you only collect email addresses on newsletter signups, what is the guidance on collecting additional data points on the subscriber as part of the welcome sequence?
Yeah, a couple of
your thoughts.
Yeah, a couple of things that I would keep in mind here. One, as a part of most email service providers, they're going to have some insights on what page generated that conversion or what part of your website generated that conversion. So if someone converted from a specific blog post, maybe an additional data point can be, this is the topic of blog post or the category of blog post that they converted. And you may want to deliver additional information about your product that's related to that particular blog post, right? So you can use some of that first party data that you've got. One other thing that, if you're on, whether it's GetResponse or others, is a lot of these ESPs are starting to layer on AI data intelligence platforms. So they have anonymous data around an email address and they can attach name, first name, what kind of company they're from, where they work, all of this third-party data, and you can utilize that to, essentially augment additional data that's inside of your CRM or your ESP. So there's a variety of ways to think about that. But if you're only asking for email address, I'm not a huge fan unless you can pull in some additional third-party data points or first-party data points, because you're only going to get email address. That doesn't give you a lot of information to generate personalized content for them in the future. So ask the questions that matter to your business. If you want to do first name personalization, ask their first name. If you want to ask them what industry they're in or what feature or why they're subscribing, ask them that question. For a long, long time, we encourage people to have as few fields as possible on a lead magnet form. The problem is that when you ask for those few fields, you end up with subscriber bloat, which is essentially you're just going to be hitting averages, 20% open rate, 3 to 4% click-through rate. If you want to be hitting higher than averages, which is all impacts things like deliverability and the ability to get into the inbox, you want to be asking those questions so that those welcome series and those autoresponders can have as much targeted and timely info in them as possible.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Michael. Ask for all the information up front. Like once someone is opted in, getting them to then go back and fill out a form is going to be very difficult. I also think based on how hot your offer is going to determine how much data someone gives you. So what are your thoughts in terms of making it required to collect data such as company name, job title, phone number? Should it be optional or should it be required?
For me, I'm going to tell you as someone who has spent an enormous amount of time looking at downstream metrics, customer lifetime value when we ask for data up front versus asking for the minimal viable amount. I want more data in the subscriber the first time I touch them. Why? It creates buy-in and a relationship to the brand. I can deliver better information and content in the future. And typically when I look at a subscriber who's been a part of our email systems for multiple years, those individuals that gave us more information on that lead magnet form are typically spend more time as an opt-in subscriber than those that do not. Now, you can make a case that for certain brands that want to drive, just high volume product sales, they don't really care. I can totally get behind that. If you're, selling the latest and greatest 25-cent tchotchke, then I think you only need, an email address and you sell them the product, and then it's really like you're done. But if I've got, sort of a high price tag product, or I have a product that has a long sales cycle, I want more information because I want to deliver more content, not only to them that is timely, targeted, and relevant for who they are as an individual, but I also, as a revenue leader inside my organization, need to get sales the data that they need to be able to help sell well. And if I don't ask for that information or can't augment it with some sort of third-party source, my sales team is going to go into these nurturing opportunities and these sales conversations with not enough data to actually sell in the right way.
So I just want to go ahead and first of all, you're spot on, Michael. Let's go to the next slide. I want to state that we have about 15 minutes left, and I know that we still have a few more slides to go through and then Q&A. If anyone has any questions for Michael, please be sure to get those in the chat so we can get to them in the next 15 minutes. Now, you've got Airtable here on the screen. What are we looking at?
Yeah, so Airtable is an example of, I think, a brand that does sort of what we just talked about really well. When they are asking for your email address as a part of their lead magnet form, they're asking a couple of key questions. One, who are you? First name, last name. Two, what industry are you in as well? And three, how often do you want to receive things from us? So they ask the cadence question too, and we'll come back to that one because I don't think I answered your question a moment to go on, adjusting cadences. What they do with that data is really interesting as a part of the welcome series. So they have a 4-part welcome series. I think we asked a question a few moments ago for Annie on, what's the best number. But this is an example of when the lead nurture has a few more data points, you can do 3, 4, or more and make it really targeted and relevant to that new subscriber. So this is Airtable. They do a couple of things with their data points. First, you'll notice on the left, which is the first email, they're utilizing some first name personalization. Hi, Michael, welcome to Airtable. Then on 2, 3, and 4, all of the things that you're seeing in the second, third, and fourth part of this welcome series is all based on that question: is what industry are you in, and what help are you looking for from Airtable? So based on 5 or 6 answers, they're customizing the content here on email 2, 3, and 4. On email 2, they're bringing in a case study that's related to the industry that's selected. You'll note here in the subject line, see how we work, a PBS show producer, and others use Airtable. So that content is specifically for their media marketing PR industry people. Then in email 3 and 4, they are picking the features that industry typically utilizes on Airtable the most and showing you how those features help that industry get work done. So it's a really smart way to take the data that you get from the lead magnet and create an email series, a welcome series in this case, that is super timely, super relevant, and super practical and contextually relevant for that new subscriber.
Excellent. Let's move on to the next. All right, so let's talk about nurture sequences, how to sell without feeling salesy. I know this comes up a lot. How do you do business in 2025 without really selling anything? So what is the secret, Michael?
So a couple of things here is just give more information than what your subscriber would generally get from other organizations. And I'll get to an example of doing this well, but just a couple other things. Provide value, provide insights, and consistently deliver what you're saying you're going to deliver as a part of that welcome series. This example from X.AI, which was a calendaring tool, I think is an autoresponder or a automated sequence, that I think does this really, really well. It's showing off the value of being a subscriber and a customer of X.AI every single week. So they have a weekly automation that says, hey, how much are you utilizing the tool from us? Pulls that data into the email. This is dynamic data that's pulled in and is all automated on the back end and says, this is how much value we're providing every single week to you as a customer. In this case, the text that's highlighted right in the middle is the value statement. It says, I scheduled 2 meetings for you last week. And in parentheses, you'll see there, saving you over 30 minutes of email ping pong, right? That's the value statement, right? That they're utilizing. I think this is a really smart way that whether you are a B2C or a B2B brand, is automate campaigns that show how much value you're providing to your customer in this case, so that when they see that charge on a credit card every single month, or they see your brand popping in on ads or in social media, they're like, oh, there's a reason I want to pay attention because this brand delivers value to me over and over again.
Now, Michael, it just dawned on me looking at this example, looking at really all the examples that you've shown so far. I haven't seen a single email that has, I don't think so, at least an emoji or an image of any kind. These are all text-based emails. I know we're talking about automation, but once again, you're the expert here. Is there a reason why these brands are leaning more towards text-based?
Yeah, semi-intentional and semi-not. I will say a couple of things from a context perspective. Number one, the example beforehand that we just chatted through, Airtable, does have some emojis in the subject line. I would say recent data, and this is quoting GetResponse, I think, state of email report that came out this year, suggests that emojis in subject lines typically have lower engagement rates. There is data from 10 years, over the last 10 years, that show that it really depends on what types of emojis you're utilizing and what ones you're not. But I'll say you got to test whether you're going to use emojis or not. I think it really depends on the demographic stats of your ideal customer and if they are a heavy emoji user or not. Although I'll say this, as much as my 10-year-old niece who just got her first iPad sends me weird Genmojis that she's making through Apple Intelligence. I get emojis from her, and the other culprit in my life that I get emojis from all the time is my 71-year-old father. So I feel like emojis really cross the demographic spectrum, if you will. But for most businesses, you're going to need to test those sorts of things. Now, images, we're going to show some examples. You've seen some examples from Airtable that do have images. I will just say this. Images take your brain a little longer to process, right? Someone has to look at an image and make a decision as to how they're actually going to, decide if they're going to ingest that image or not. It's a cognitive load on someone's brain. Text feels like it's a one-to-one communication. Email has largely always been, and we still want it to be, a one-to-one feel. So this is semi-intentional to include a lot of text-based formats because typically we see higher engagement rates and reply rates from more text-based campaigns than we do image-based campaigns. But we do both at StarTech.com. We have our sales cadences that are largely text-based. We have some initial outreach that comes from our president because he's fairly well known in the space. And then we do bring in more brand-related, more storytelling-esque emails, but we always start with text-based headlines and subheads and then push the image into the content later on. And we'll show you some of those examples, but it is semi-intentional. email should feel like a one-to-one paradigm, and text feels more one-to-one than images does.
I appreciate you, Michael, answering that. Since we are starting to run close to the top of the hour, let's go to the next slide, please. So, smart triggers that drive results. If we can just keep it moving forward. So, let's talk about smart triggers. It looks like the example here, Michael, is more so aimed at an e-commerce business. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. I can breeze right through these. So smart triggers are based on some behavior that someone's doing. In this case, this example is they can be based on things that people are doing in the inbox, like opens, clicks, downloads, or inactivity. It can be based on things they're doing on your website, certain pages they visited, certain products they visited, certain search terms they've utilized. So in this case, this is one from Blueland. This is a Blueland. It's like a very like eco-friendly cleaning product. You buy their spray bottles and things, then you fill them with Blueland tablets to dissolve and create your solution, your cleaning solution. They're doing essentially, hey, if someone that we know is a subscriber spends a certain amount of time on a product page several minutes later, and if they, abandon the website or the website goes dormant on their tab, we're going to trigger an email that goes out to them that says, hey, you might like this too. So that's an example from Blueland. If we want to go to the next one, there's another example too. And my screen, hold on, y'all. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you.
Sorry, I just lost audio and video. There we go. I apologize for that. Second one from here. This is from the team at Lululemon. This is their cart abandonment email. So if you put something in their cart, they message you with your move and, do you want to keep shopping? I think this is a really smart play from Lululemon. Note some visual hierarchy here. They're starting with text and the images are below. Lululemon 6 months ago changed the entire hierarchy of their email where images were above and then headlines and subheads were below. They have seen higher conversions when they've put headlines, subheads, call to action above their main images. Love the punchy and smart, and short subject line here. Your taste, ? Impeccable. This could work for any product that they're doing, right? You don't need to overthink this. Super skimmable. I can look through, I can see things. It's really laid out well here. And then essentially, make sure your tone is on brand, and Lululemon does a really good job of this as well. Another example from Webflow, this is a re-engagement campaign. They're essentially, the headline here, as you can see, is since we last saw you, 10,234 designers started using our CMS. So if you've seen some product usage drop off or someone maybe canceled their license, this could be a way of using social proof to get people to come back and be a customer, but another re-engagement opportunity here. And then the last example that you'll just see here that I think that's up next is from the team at FrameBridge. This is their sunset or re-engagement series. You'll note the subject line here, right? Is this the end? You haven't opened anything related to us from the past few weeks. Do you want to keep us on our list? And you'll note here the call to action, super big, easy to see, wait, keep me on the list. And you can decide as a business or as that individual can decide if they're going to stay a subscriber or not.
How important is it, Michael, to try to re-engage those subscribers that never open up your emails, never click? So the inactive subscribers. That's what this email reminds me of.
Yeah, your unengaged or inactive subscribers are doing just as much damage to your list as those people who are marking as spam. All of the ISPs, Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, AOL, you name it. And on the B2B side too, are seeing how many campaigns some brand is delivering to that you're not engaged with. And then they're leveraging algorithms to decide what they're going to do with that campaign. As we see more AI and machine learning come into the inbox, you're already seeing it with Apple Intelligence and what they're doing in the Mail app. There is starting going to be detrimental impacts of people ignoring your campaigns, but there's also sort of the technical impact of making sure that you continually get delivered, and those things are starting to be impacted as well. So those unengaged subscribers, get them off your list for two reasons. One, it'll help with deliverability. Two, your email metrics will go up, and we all like metrics that are going up.
Absolutely. So, first of all, for those of you that have tuned in today, you're going to receive some email communications for myself and GetResponse. If you're not using GetResponse, sign up for a 30-day free trial. You don't even need to sign up with a credit card. You can just sign up with your first, last name and with an email address, and you can use GetResponse For 30 days, you can send unlimited emails up to 500 contacts. Make sure that you look at all the bells and whistles. Make sure you look at the automation tools. That's really where the money's at in email marketing. So hopefully, Michael, over the last hour, helped at least scratch the surface with your knowledge. And be sure to stay in touch. Reach out to Michael on LinkedIn. Reach out to myself on LinkedIn, Scott as well from Marketer Hire. And once again, you see here in front of you, stop winging it, start automating it. Sorry. Use these tools. The tools are right there in front of you. If you're not using them, I guarantee you're leaving a lot of money on the table. Mike, I'll turn it back over to you.
Oh, just thank you for everyone for joining us. If you got any questions or follow-ups, I'm more than happy to answer those. Feel free to either hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm just at Michael James Barber on LinkedIn. And feel free to DM me if you've got additional questions. Be happy to answer them there.
Well, thank you both for joining. I learned a lot. I'm going to be implementing some of these things that you talked about into my own email program. So great insights. Hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll wrap up and send the recording later.
All right, guys. See ya.
Thanks all.